The holographic transmission flickered to life above every major city on Earth simultaneously, casting an eerie blue glow across billions of upturned faces. The alien figure that materialized stood 12 feet tall, with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern blinked in sequence, and when it spoke, the voice carried a resonance that made windows rattle. Primitive species of the third planet, you will cease all resistance and submit to the dominion of Krell within 1 rotation of your world. Failure to comply will result in total atmospheric incineration. Then the transmission cut out. For approximately 30 seconds, Earth held its breath. Then somebody in New York started laughing. Within minutes, the laughter had spread like wildfire across every continent. Social media exploded with memes. Late-night comedians scrambled to rewrite their opening monologues. News anchors struggled to maintain composure as they reported the ultimatum with tears streaming down their faces. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the war room of the United Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the global response with a mixture of disbelief and reluctant amusement. Around her, military officers from every nation tried desperately to maintain professionalism, but even General Rodriguez had cracked a smile. 24 hours to surrender, Sarah muttered, shaking her head. These clowns clearly haven't done their homework. Commander Chen, called out Lieutenant James Park from his console, we're getting readings on their fleet positioning. Looks like 300 ships in high orbit, weapons charged but holding. 300, Sarah repeated flatly. That's adorable. Her second-in-command, Major Elena Volkov, pulled up a tactical display that showed the Krell fleet arranged in what they probably thought was an intimidating formation. Elena snorted. They're bunched together like sardines. If they actually tried to fire, half of them would hit each other. Sarah tapped her wrist communicator. Get me Director Hayes at Intelligence. The screen blinked, and Director Marcus Hayes appeared, his dark face split by an enormous grin. You seeing this circus, Commander? I'm seeing it. What's the analysis? Oh, it gets better. We cracked their communication encryption in about 40 minutes. Want to know why? They're using a system our computers labeled as aggressively obsolete. We're talking technology that Earth abandoned in 2087. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Dead serious. Also, their ships, conventional fusion drives. No quantum stabilizers, no gravitational shielding worth mentioning, and their weapons are plasma-based projectiles that move at, and I'm not joking here, roughly the speed of a decent fastball. The room erupted in laughter. Somebody actually calculated that, Marcus continued, wiping his eyes. Their so-called planet killers are throwing hot gas at us, slower than a major league pitcher. How long would it take to neutralize the fleet? Sarah asked, her tone shifting to business. If we wanted them gone, 8 minutes. Maybe 10 if we're being polite about it. Sarah drummed her fingers on the console, thinking. Earth had come a long way since the dark days of the 22nd century. The discovery of zero-point energy had revolutionized everything. Quantum computing had unlocked secrets of the universe that made faster-than-light travel look primitive. And then there was the weaponry. Developed during humanity's brief but intense civil war that had unified the planet through sheer exhausted agreement that nobody ever wanted to see that kind of destruction again. Let them have their 24 hours, Sarah decided. I want full surveillance on every ship. Map their systems, catalog their tech, figure out where they came from and who sent them. You think they're scouts for someone bigger? Elena asked. Or they're idiots, operating alone, which honestly seems more likely at this point. The next 18 hours became the most entertaining period in Earth's recent history. Late-night host Trevor Jackson opened his show with a 10-minute bit about the Krell that went instantly viral. They want us to surrender, he gasped between laughs, and they gave us a whole day to think about it. That's like giving a toddler 24 hours to consider eating a cookie. What exactly did they think was going to happen? At universities across the planet, physics professors used the Krell fleet as a teaching example of what not to do when invading a technologically superior civilization. One particularly savage lecture at MIT became required viewing in military academies worldwide, but not everyone was laughing. In a small apartment in Moscow, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stared at the data streaming across her screens with growing unease. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she'd been among the first to receive detailed scans of the Krell physiology. Something wasn't adding up. These readings can't be right, she muttered, pulling up genetic markers and cross-referencing them against the biological database. Her research partner, Dr. Amara Okafor, looked over from her own station. What do you got? The Krell aren't just primitive technologically, they're primitive biologically. Look at these neural pathways. This species should barely have spaceflight capability, let alone faster than light travel, even if it's slow by our standards. Amara frowned, studying the data. You think someone gave them the ships? I think someone pointed them at us and pushed go. Yuki's fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up communication intercepts that intelligence had made public. She ran them through linguistic analysis software, searching for patterns. What she found made her blood run cold. Amara, call Commander Chen, right now. Back in the war room, Sarah was reviewing deployment strategies when her communicator buzzed with an urgent priority signal. Yuki's face appeared and the fear in her eyes cut through Sarah's good mood like a blade. Commander, we have a serious problem. Talk to me, Doctor. The Krell aren't the real threat. They're a distraction. I've been analyzing their communication patterns and there's a secondary frequency embedded in their broadcasts, something broadcasting on a quantum level that our standard equipment almost missed. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Broadcasting what? Coordinates, our defensive positions, military installations, population centers. Everything. Someone else is using the Krell as a probe to map our capabilities. Show me. Yuki transferred the data to the war room displays. Sarah watched as the hidden transmissions played out, each one carefully encoded within the Krell's bombastic threats and clumsy positioning. Whoever was receiving this information was getting a complete picture of Earth's defenses. How long until the alarms screamed to life before Sarah could finish the question? Lieutenant Park's voice cracked with sudden urgency. Commander, we've got new contacts. Quantum signatures resolving at the edge of the solar system. 50, no, 75. Still counting. These aren't like the Krell ships. These are reading as heavy cruisers with full military loadouts. The tactical display updated, showing sleek vessels that made the Krell fleet look like children's toys. Their approach vectors were perfect, their formation flawless, and their weapon systems lit up the sensors like Christmas trees. Identity? Sarah barked. Transponders identifying them as the Vraxian collective. Cross-referencing with the database now. Commander, we've got historical records on these people. They're why the Krell have such primitive tech. The Vraxians subjugated them 2 centuries ago and have been using them as expendable forward scouts ever since. Sarah's jaw clenched. How long until they're in firing range? At their current speed, 90 minutes. Not enough time to fully mobilize the fleet, Elena said quietly. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities, calculating odds and outcomes. The Vraxians had played this brilliantly. Use a joke of a species to make humanity lower its guard, laugh at the primitive invaders, broadcast every defensive secret while everyone was too busy making memes to notice the real danger approaching. Get me every ship we have in orbit or capable of reaching orbit in the next hour, Sarah commanded. I don't care if they're military, commercial, or somebody's private yacht. If it can mount a weapon and survive in space, I want it up there. Commander, Marcus's voice cut in from intelligence. We're also picking up chatter from the Krell fleet. I think they just figured out they've been used. Their formation is breaking up and several ships are trying to run. Sarah watched as the Krell vessels scattered like frightened birds. She felt a surge of something almost like pity. These beings had been sent to die, sacrificial pawns in someone else's game. Open a channel to the Krell fleet, she ordered. Ma'am? Elena looked confused. Do it. The communication officer worked frantically, then nodded. Channel open, Commander. Sarah took a breath. Krell vessels. This is Commander Sarah Chen of United Earth Defense. We know you've been manipulated. We know the Vraxians are coming. If you want to survive the next 2 hours, you'll follow our instructions exactly. Static crackled. Then a voice, trembling and far less imposing than the initial broadcast, responded in broken English. You help us? After we threat, the enemy of my enemy is someone I can work with, Sarah replied. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to link your navigational systems to our network. We're going to position your ships where we need them. And you're going to fire when we tell you to fire at the targets we designate. In exchange, we'll try to keep you alive. Deal? A long pause. Deal. Lieutenant Park looked up from his console, eyes wide. Commander, we're also detecting something else. Energy signatures building in the Vraxian fleet. They're not just approaching, they're charging some kind of superweapon. The display zoomed in on the largest Vraxian vessel, a monstrous dreadnought easily 5 miles long. At its bow, a sphere of crackling energy was growing, pulsing with barely contained power. "What's the yield on that thing?" Sarah asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. Marcus's voice was grim. "If they fire that at Earth, we're looking at an extinction-level event. That's not a weapon meant to conquer. That's a weapon meant to erase." Sarah felt the weight of 8 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. She'd trained for scenarios like this, run simulations, prepared contingency plans. But standing here, watching doom approach at relativistic speeds, the reality hit with crushing force. "Time to weapons range, 72 minutes. Then we've got 72 minutes to figure out how to kill a dreadnought," Sarah said, her voice hard as steel. "Elena, I need every tactical officer we have running scenarios. Marcus, find me a weakness in their shields, their hull, anything. Park, coordinate with the Krell ships, and get me a firing solution that doesn't sacrifice them all in the first salvo." The war room exploded into controlled chaos as every officer bent to their task. Sarah pulled up the global defense grid, watching as ships began launching from every spaceport on the planet. Humanity's fleet was impressive, built on cutting-edge technology that made conventional physics cry, but they were scattered, disorganized, and facing an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting the art of conquest. Then her communicator buzzed again. This time it was Admiral Zhang from the Pacific Fleet. "Commander Chen, I've been reviewing the Vraxian approach vectors. They're moving in a straight line, maximum speed, all power to forward shields. What's your point, Admiral?" "They're overconfident. They think Earth is still laughing, still unprepared. They're not deploying defensive patterns because they don't think they'll need them." Sarah felt a spark of hope ignite. "You have a plan?" "I have an insane idea that might get us all killed but could also work." "How much do you trust me?" Sarah looked at the countdown timer on her display. 70 minutes until potential extinction. "Right now, Admiral, you're my favorite person in the solar system. Talk to me." As Admiral Zhang explained his strategy, Sarah felt her expression shift from skepticism to shock to something resembling a smile. It was absolutely crazy. It violated every standard tactical doctrine. It required precision timing that bordered on impossible and coordination between forces that had barely practiced together. It was also the most human plan she'd ever heard. "Do it," Sarah ordered, "and Admiral, make sure every ship knows what they're signing up for." "They already do, Commander. Nobody's backing down." Sarah turned to address the entire war room. "Listen up, everyone. We're about to attempt something spectacularly stupid, but if it works, the Vraxians are going to learn a very important lesson about Adanim." "What lesson is that?" Elena asked. Sarah's smile turned predatory. "That we're at our most dangerous when someone makes us stop laughing." The next hour passed in a blur of preparation. Ships moved into position following patterns that made no tactical sense to any conventional military mind. The Krell vessels, now under human coordination, arranged themselves in formations that looked like deliberate vulnerabilities. Weapon systems charged, crews ran final checks, and across Earth, people who'd spent 18 hours laughing at an alien threat now watched their skies with bated breath. At 58 minutes, the Vraxian dreadnought superweapon reached full charge. At 55 minutes, every ship in the makeshift Earth defense fleet reported ready. At 52 minutes, Sarah Chen opened a broadcast channel that reached every human being on the planet and every ship in orbit. "This is Commander Chen. I'm not going to lie and tell you there's no danger. The Vraxians came here planning to wipe us out, to add Earth to their collection of conquered worlds. They used the Krell as bait, made us laugh while they prepared to strike. That was their first mistake." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Their second mistake was thinking that laughter meant weakness, that humor meant we weren't taking them seriously. But here's the thing about humans. We laugh in the face of death, not because we don't understand the danger, but because we refuse to give it the satisfaction of our fear." On the tactical display, the Vraxian fleet crossed the orbital boundary. 48 minutes. Every person in every ship up there right now volunteered. Military, civilian, it didn't matter. Because that's what we do. When someone threatens our home, we don't surrender. We don't break, we stand together and we fight. So to the Vraxians heading our way with their fancy dreadnought and their superweapon, I have a message. Sarah's voice dropped to something cold and deadly. You should have spent more time learning about us. Because you're about to find out why Earth doesn't get conquered. why we're still here after wars, plagues, near-extinction events, and our own worst impulses. You wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop laughing. The superweapon on the dreadnought pulsed, ready to fire. Here we are. And that's when Sarah gave the order that changed everything. All ships execute protocol Mockingbird. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for generations. But in the moment it looked like pure chaos. The Earth fleet scattered in every direction, ships diving, climbing, rolling in patterns that seemed random. The Krell vessels suddenly surged forward, not attacking but screaming directly at the Vraxian formation like missiles. The Vraxians, expecting either surrender or a conventional defensive stance, found themselves facing 300 ships on suicide runs and a scattered enemy they couldn't effectively target. Their formation buckled, ships breaking off to intercept the Krell vessels. But the Krell ships never made impact. At the last possible second, they detonated their own reactor cores. The explosions weren't large enough to destroy the Vraxian ships, but they didn't need to be. What they did was create massive electromagnetic pulses that fried sensors and temporarily disabled shields, and in that brief window of blindness and vulnerability, Earth's fleet struck. They came from every angle, weapons blazing with quantum disruption torpedoes and coherent energy beams that punched through weakened defenses like tissue paper. The Vraxian formation, already disrupted, collapsed into complete disarray as ships exploded or went spinning off into space, crippled and burning. But the dreadnought remained, its superweapon fired. A lance of pure destruction screamed toward Earth at near light speed, capable of burning through the atmosphere and igniting the oceans. Sarah watched it come, her heart hammering in her chest, trusting in the second part of Admiral Zhang's insane plan. Every ship in the Earth fleet, in perfect synchronization, fired their quantum displacement drives simultaneously. The combined effect created a localized spatial distortion that shouldn't have been possible. A gravity well that bent space itself. The superweapon's beam curved. Not much, just enough. Instead of hitting Earth, it carved through empty space and slammed directly into the dreadnought itself. The explosion lit up half the solar system. The Vraxian dreadnought, struck by its own planet-killing weapon, simply ceased to exist. The shockwave tore through the remaining Vraxian fleet, shredding hulls and vaporizing smaller vessels. In the war room, nobody moved, nobody breathed. They all stared at the tactical display where just seconds ago humanity's execution had been assured. Then Lieutenant Park whispered, "Holy hell, it worked!" The room erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other. Elena grabbed Sarah in a bear hug that nearly cracked her ribs. Even stoic General Rodriguez wiped tears from his eyes. But Sarah's gaze remained fixed on the display. The Vraxian fleet was decimated. Yes, but not destroyed. Dozens of ships remained, wounded and scattered but still armed and still angry. "Silence," she called out, her voice cutting through the celebration. The room went quiet. "We hurt them, but this isn't over. All ships, maintain formation and prepare." "Commander," Marcus interrupted from intelligence, "we're receiving a transmission from the remaining Vraxian vessels, text only." "Put it up." 3 words appeared on the main screen. "We request parley." Sarah felt her eyebrows climb. "Well, that's unexpected. Could be a trick," Elena warned. "Could be," Sarah agreed. "Or they just watched their superweapon backfire and realized they're outmatched." "Marcus, what's the status of their fleet?" 27 ships still operational, but none at full combat effectiveness. They're regrouping at the edge of weapons range, holding position. Sarah made her decision. "Grant them parley, but tell them it happens here in Earth orbit, where every weapon we have is pointed at their heads, and they send one representative on an unarmed shuttle." An hour later, Sarah stood in a conference room deep within the headquarters, flanked by Elena and General Rodriguez. Through the transparent aluminum wall, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black velvet of space. The door opened, and the Vraxian representative entered. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with pale lavender skin covered in intricate crystalline patterns that glowed faintly. Forearms moved with fluid grace, and her large eyes held an intelligence that made Sarah immediately recalibrate her assessment. This wasn't some mindless warmonger. This was someone who understood exactly what had just happened. "I am Vrex Commander Talara," the alien said, her voice surprisingly melodious. "I speak for what remains of the subjugation fleet." Commander Sarah Chen, United Earth Defense. You wanted to talk, so talk. Talara's gaze swept the room, lingering on the view of Earth. Your world is beautiful. I had not expected that. Most things are beautiful before you try to incinerate them, Sarah replied dryly. A sound escaped Talara that might have been a laugh. Indeed, Commander Chen, I must confess that my people have made a grave miscalculation. Only one, several if we're being honest. We assumed Earth was primitive based on the absence of quantum markers in your deep space communications. We assumed your defensive posture was weak based on the Krell probe receiving minimal resistance. We assumed that a species that responded to an invasion ultimatum with humor and memes lacked military sophistication. Those were some really spectacular assumptions, Elena said. Talara's crystalline patterns shifted color slightly. Yes, they were. And now the subjugation fleet's command structure is dead. Our dreadnought is debris, and I find myself in the uncomfortable position of requesting terms. Sarah crossed her arms. What makes you think we're offering terms? You came here to commit genocide. Why should we let you leave alive? Because, Talara said calmly, I can offer you something far more valuable than revenge. Information. General Rodriguez leaned forward. What kind of information? The Vraxian Collective is not the only empire expanding through this region of space. We are merely the nearest. Beyond our borders lie the Zenthari Dominion, the Kaleth Concordat and the Ashkari Swarm. Each one commands fleets that make our subjugation force look like a scouting party. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How many ships are we talking about? The Zenthari alone field approximately 12,000 heavy warships. The Kaleth focus on quality over quantity, but their technology is centuries ahead of anything the Vraxians possess. And the Ashkari breed faster than we can count. And you're telling us this why? Talara's eyes met Sarah's directly. Because what you did today, that impossible coordinated attack, that insane gambit with your own spatial displacement fields, changes everything. Earth just announced to every species watching that humanity is not prey. You are predators, and predators need to know where the other predators are. Elena looked skeptical. You're saying every hostile species in the region watched this battle. Multiple civilizations monitor potential targets. Your quantum communications burst when you activated Protocol Mockingbird lit up sensors across 3 sectors. By now every empire within 50 light-years knows that Earth exists and that you destroyed a Vraxian subjugation fleet with minimal losses. Sarah exchanged glances with General Rodriguez. This was moving into territory way above her authority. I need to bring in our political leadership for this conversation. Of course, Talara agreed. But Commander, there is one more thing you should know. What's that? The Krell who assisted you in the battle. They are the last of their kind. The Vraxians hunted their species to near extinction over the past century. The 300 ships you saw represented every surviving Krell in the galaxy. Sarah's chest tightened. How many survived the reactor detonations? Talara consulted a device on one of her wrists. According to my fleet's sensors, 17 ships managed to pull away before critical mass. Perhaps 500 individuals total. That's it? 500 survivors of an entire species? Yes. And they are now adrift in your solar system with damaged vessels and dwindling supplies. Sarah didn't hesitate. Elena, contact the Rescue Coordination Center. I want recovery ships dispatched to every Krell vessel immediately. Medical teams, engineering support, whatever they need. Commander, General Rodriguez said quietly. Shouldn't we clear that with— No, Sarah cut him off. Those people, and yes, I'm calling them people, just sacrificed themselves to save Earth. We don't debate helping them. We just do it. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. For the first time since entering the room, Talara's crystalline patterns brightened noticeably. That reaction, Commander Chen, is precisely why I believe humanity might survive what's coming. Over the next 3 weeks, Earth underwent the most rapid transformation in its history. The parley with Talari expanded into full negotiations, with political leaders, military strategists, and scientists from every nation involved. The Vraxian provided detailed intelligence on the major powers in the region along with technological specifications and tactical assessments. The Krell survivors were given sanctuary in a specially constructed orbital habitat. At first they'd been terrified, certain that humanity would exact revenge for the invasion attempt. Instead, they found themselves treated with respect, given medical care, and offered the choice to stay or seek a new home elsewhere in the galaxy. All 503 of them chose to stay. Sarah found herself in the unusual position of managing first contact protocols with a species that had tried to invade Earth just a month earlier. She met with their leader, a weathered Krell named Torgan, who had commanded the fleet's flagship. They met in the observation deck of the habitat, Earth visible through the viewport. "I owe you an apology," Torgan said without preamble. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Sarah had learned indicated sincerity. "My people were desperate. The Vraxians promised us a new world if we succeeded in conquering yours. We knew it was likely a lie, but the hope of freedom, of a home, it blinded us to the immorality of what we were being asked to do." "I understand desperation," Sarah replied. "I've seen what it makes people do, but what I need to know now is whether your people can move forward. We're offering you asylum, but Earth needs to know you're not going to become a fifth column." Torgan made a gesture with his lower arms that translated roughly to a human bow. "Commander Chen, my people have nothing but gratitude for humanity. You could have destroyed us. You had every right. Instead, you saved us. There is a concept in Krell culture, a debt of honor that can only be repaid through loyal service. Every Krell in this habitat has sworn that oath to Earth." "I'm not asking for servitude," Sarah said firmly. "I'm offering partnership. Your people have experience with interstellar travel with different species and cultures. That's exactly what Earth needs right now. Then you have it, freely given, not as payment, but as friends." Sarah extended her hand. After a moment, Torgan reached out with one of his own appendages, and they shook on it. Meanwhile, intelligence analysts were processing the staggering amount of data Talara had provided. Dr. Yuki Tanaka and her team worked around the clock, building comprehensive profiles of the major powers. The Zenthari Dominion was a hierarchical empire spanning 47 star systems, ruled by an emperor who claimed divine right. Their military doctrine favored overwhelming force and scorched earth tactics. They'd conquered over 200 species in the past millennium and showed no signs of slowing down. The Calith Concordat was smaller but terrifyingly advanced. They'd mastered technologies that Earth's best scientists could barely comprehend, weapons that manipulated probability fields, shields that existed in parallel dimensions, and ships that could become intangible at will. They were less overtly aggressive than the Zenthari but equally dismissive of lesser species. And then there was the Ashkari swarm. The briefing documents on them gave Sarah nightmares. They weren't a traditional civilization at all, but a collective consciousness spread across billions of insectoid bodies. They reproduced exponentially, consumed resources at an alarming rate, and moved from system to system like a plague of locusts. Negotiations with them were impossible because they lacked individual identity. You couldn't reason with the swarm because the swarm didn't think in concepts like mercy or compromise. "We are spectacularly screwed," Marcus observed during one briefing, staring at the strategic map that showed hostile empires in every direction. "Maybe not," Sarah countered. "Look at the map again. Really look at it." Marcus frowned, studying the display. "I see 3 massive threats surrounding us. And what are they doing? Expanding their territories, conquering. The usual empire stuff." Marcus trailed off as realization dawned. Oh no. "Oh yes," Sarah confirmed. "They're all heading toward each other. The Zenthari are pushing into Kalith space. The Kaliths are maneuvering to avoid the Ashkari, and the Ashkari are spreading in all directions. Earth isn't in the middle of hostile territory. We're in the middle of a powder keg that's about to explode." Dr. Tanaka pulled up conflict projections. "Based on current expansion rates and resource depletion patterns, we're estimating major wars breaking out within the next 5 to 10 years, possibly sooner if someone decides to make a preemptive strike." "So what do we do?" Elena asked. "Pick a side?" "We build," Sarah said firmly. "We take everything we've learned from this encounter and we build better ships, better weapons, better defenses, and we make alliances." "With who?" "Everyone out there is either hostile or conquered." Sarah smiled. "Not everyone. Talara tells me there are dozens of minor species in the region, civilizations too small or remote to have attracted the attention of the major powers yet. Species like the Krell who are desperate for protection from empires that see them as resources to be exploited." General Rodriguez caught on immediately. "You want to build a coalition. I want to build something better. A federation of free worlds, united not by conquest but by mutual defense and shared values. Earth can't stand alone against these empires, but we don't have to. There are hundreds of species out there who would jump at the chance for protection and a voice in their own destiny. It's ambitious, Marcus admitted. Some might say insane. I prefer optimistic, Sarah countered. And we've got something none of these empires have. We've got humanity's greatest asset. What's that? We know how to make friends out of enemies. The Krell came here to invade us, and now they're part of Earth's extended family. Alara came here as a conqueror, and now she's helping us prepare for what's coming. That's the human superpower that none of these galactic empires understand. We don't just defeat our enemies, we turn them into allies. Over the following months, Earth's transformation accelerated. New shipyards blossomed in orbit around the Moon and Mars. The Krell shared their knowledge of faster-than-light navigation, while human engineers improved on their designs using quantum principles. Hybrid vessels began rolling out, combining the best of both species' technologies. Talara proved to be an invaluable advisor. She'd formally defected from the Vraxian collective, claiming asylum on Earth and bringing with her a cadre of like-minded Vraxians who'd grown disgusted with their empire's expansionist policies. Her insights into galactic politics were worth their weight in antimatter. Sarah found herself promoted to admiral, leading the newly formed Earth Coalition fleet. The name was optimistic. So far, the coalition consisted of Earth, the Krell remnant, and about 40 Vraxian defectors. But it was 6 months after the invasion attempt, the first contact mission launched. 3 ships, commanded by Admiral Chen herself, with Krell navigators and Vraxian diplomatic advisors. Their target was the Pelion system, home to a species called the Mirathi who'd been paying tribute to the Xanthari for decades. The mission was a gamble. If the Mirathi reported Earth's presence to the Xanthari, it could trigger another invasion. But if they listened, if they joined, the Mirathi were aquatic beings, graceful and intelligent, who'd developed advanced biotechnology but lacked military capabilities. Their home world was beautiful, covered in vast oceans dotted with floating cities. When Sarah's fleet arrived in orbit, the Mirathi response was cautious but intrigued. They'd never seen ships like Earth's, and the presence of Krell crew members especially fascinated them. The Krell were legend in this region, the species that had resisted the Vraxians for a generation before finally falling. The negotiations took 3 weeks. Sarah laid out Earth's proposal: mutual defense, technology exchange, and freedom from tribute payments to the Xanthari. And what do you ask in return? The Mirathi elder, named Solanth, inquired. Friendship, Sarah replied simply. An alliance of equals. Your people have biotechnology that could revolutionize medicine throughout the coalition. We have military capabilities that can protect you. Together, we're stronger. The Xanthari will not appreciate losing their tribute, Solanth warned. Then the Xanthari will learn that tribute is no longer an option, Sarah said firmly. We're building something new out here. A coalition where strength comes from cooperation, not subjugation, where species retain their sovereignty and cultures. The Xanthari can adapt to that reality, or they can try to stop us. But they won't find us easy targets. Solanth's large eyes studied Sarah for a long moment. Then she made a rippling gesture with her fin-like appendages that translated to agreement. The Mirathi accept your offer, Admiral Chen. We will join your coalition. 1 became 2, 2 became 5, 5 became 20. Over the next year, Earth's coalition grew as word spread of a new power in the region, one that offered protection without demanding submission. Small species, tired of being pawns in larger empires' games, flocked to the banner. Each brought unique strengths. The Helion contributed their mastery of solar energy collection. The Kryn offered advanced sensors. The Talvan provided agricultural techniques that could feed billions. And all the while, Earth prepared for war. Because the empires had noticed, the Xanthari sent a fleet to investigate reports of unauthorized military activity in their tribute territories. That fleet encountered an Earth Coalition armada of 200 ships, representing 15 species. The battle lasted 4 hours and ended with the Xanthari retreating, their flagship crippled and 17 vessels destroyed. The message was clear: the coalition would defend its members. The Kalith took a different approach, attempting to infiltrate Earth's networks with their advanced technology. They succeeded in penetrating several systems before running headlong into something they hadn't anticipated: humanity's experience with cybersecurity and hacking culture. Earth's digital defenses weren't just sophisticated, they were devious, laying traps within traps, and treating the K'leth intrusion as a challenge to be met with creativity and spite. The K'leth withdrew, confused and frustrated. Only the Ashkari seemed unconcerned with the coalition's existence. They continued their inexorable spread, consuming everything in their path. Sarah stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching the latest intelligence reports with growing concern. The Ashkari were approaching coalition space, and unlike the Zenthari or K'leth, they couldn't be negotiated with or deterred. Admiral Captain Voran, a Krell officer who'd become Sarah's trusted second-in-command, reported, "Scouts confirm the swarm has reached the Outer Rim colonies. Estimated arrival in Coalition core systems in 8 months. How many ships in the Vanguard continue Pena 121 das? Ships is the wrong term, ma'am. We're estimating 3 million individual Ashkari bioforms in the leading wave, with the main body numbering in the billions." Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. This was it. The real test. Everything they'd built, every alliance forged, every technological advancement, it all came down to stopping an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or frightened. "Call a coalition summit," Sarah ordered. "Every member species, every military commander. We've got 8 months to figure out how to stop the unstoppable." The summit convened on Earth in the newly constructed Unity Hall. Representatives from 37 species gathered, some meeting each other for the first time: humans, Krell, Marathi, Vraxian defectors and dozens of others, all united by a common threat. Sarah addressed them all, her voice carrying through translation devices to every species present. The Ashkari swarm represents an existential threat not just to the coalition, but to all life in this region. They don't conquer, they consume. They don't negotiate, they devour. And if we don't stop them here, they'll sweep through every system in this sector. She pulled up projections showing the swarm's projected path. But we have advantages the swarm doesn't expect. We have diversity of thought. We have species that have evolved in different environments, facing different challenges, developing different solutions. The Ashkari are a single consciousness. We are billions of individuals working together. Dr. Tanaka, now the Coalition's chief scientific advisor, stepped forward. "My team has been studying Ashkari biology and behavior patterns. They're formidable, but they have weaknesses. Their collective consciousness relies on quantum entanglement across the entire swarm. Disrupt that connection, and individual bioforms become confused, unable to coordinate. How do we disrupt quantum entanglement on that scale?" asked a Helion representative. "We can't," Dr. Tanaka admitted. "At least, not directly. But we don't need to. The Ashkari maintain their connection through specialized nodes, larger bioforms that act as relay points. If we can identify and eliminate those nodes, the swarm fragments." Talara finished, her crystalline patterns glowing with excitement. Each segment would still be dangerous, but manageable. Unable to coordinate large-scale attacks, the planning took months. Every species contributed. The Marathi developed biological weapons specifically targeting Ashkari physiology. The Helion designed solar collection arrays that could be weaponized into devastating energy lances. Human engineers refined Waktan disruption, torpedoes. Krell strategists planned battle formations that would maximize the Coalition's mobility advantage. And through it all, more species joined. The word had spread across the sector. There was a coalition that stood against the darkness, that fought not for conquest but for survival and freedom. The Vraxian came, bringing their heavy armor technology. The Yalani arrived with their mastery of gravitational manipulation. Even a contingent of Zenthari, disgusted with their empire's corruption, defected to join the coalition. When the Ashkari vanguard finally arrived, they found not a scattered collection of prey species, but a unified fleet of over 1,500 ships from 43 species, arranged in a defensive formation around the colony world of New Haven. Sarah stood on Unity's bridge, surrounded by her multi-species command crew, and opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Chen to all Coalition forces. Today we fight not for glory, not for territory, but for the simple right to exist. The swarm believes we're prey. Let's show them what happens when prey evolves into predators." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations across dozens of worlds. The Ashkari came in waves, bioships that moved with unnatural coordination, weapons that were living organisms bred for destruction. But they'd met erased opposition like this. Coalition ships moved in coordinated strike patterns, hit-and-run tactics. that prevented the swarm from bringing its numerical advantage to bear. Quantum torpedoes found their targets, massive relay nodes that exploded in bursts of disrupted energy. When segments of the swarm lost cohesion, Mirathi bioweapons swept through them like wildfire. It was brutal. It was desperate. Ships fell. Brave crews sacrificed themselves to cover retreats or create openings. The Krell vessel Redemption rammed a relay node when its weapons failed, the crew knowing they wouldn't survive but buying time for others to escape. The Helion cruiser Daylight used its entire power core to generate a solar lance that carved through thousands of Ashkari bioforms before the ship went dark forever. But slowly, impossibly, the Coalition pushed forward. Sarah watched the tactical display, her heart breaking with every ship lost but swelling with pride at the courage on display. Humans fought alongside Krell, who fought alongside Mirathi, who fought alongside species that had been strangers 6 months. And finally, after 18 hours of continuous combat, the Ashkari vanguard broke, not retreated. The swarm didn't retreat, but without their relay nodes, without coordination, the individual bioforms scattered, confused, and vulnerable. Coalition forces hunted down the fragments methodically, ensuring none escaped to rejoin the main swarm. When it was over, when the last bioform was eliminated and New Haven's skies were clear, Sarah slumped in her command chair, exhausted beyond measure. "Casualty reports?" she asked quietly. Captain Voring consulted his display, his expression grim. 117 ships lost. Approximately 43,000 personnel killed in action. Another 22,000 wounded. Sarah closed her eyes. 43,000 lives. 43,000 people who'd trusted her leadership. 43,000 families who'd lost someone. "Admiral," Voring continued, his voice gentle. "They saved 3 billion colonists on New Haven, and they sent a message to the main swarm. Earth Coalition is not easy prey." "It's not enough," Sarah whispered. "No," Voring agreed. "But it's what we have, and we'll honor them by continuing the fight." In the aftermath, the Coalition held a memorial ceremony broadcast across all member worlds. Sarah spoke, honoring the fallen from every species. She named them, as many as she could, ensuring their sacrifice was remembered. And then she delivered a message that rippled across the entire sector. To the Zenthari Dominion, to the Kaleth Concordat, to any empire that believes might makes right, Earth Coalition is not your enemy. We seek peace, cooperation, and the freedom for all species to determine their own destiny, but we will not submit, we will not be conquered, and we will not allow our member worlds to be consumed by threats that see life as nothing more than resources to be exploited. She paused, letting her words sink in. The old order, where powerful empires dictated terms to weaker species, is over. A new age has begun, one where strength comes from unity and diversity. You can join us in building this future, or you can stand us. But if you stand against us, if you threaten our worlds or our people, you'll face the same fate as the Vraxian subjugation fleet in the Ashkari vanguard. Sarah's expression hardened. "We are Earth. We are the Coalition, and we don't surrender." The transmission ended. In the weeks that followed, 3 more species requested membership. The Zenthari recalled their tribute fleets from Coalition space, unwilling to risk another confrontation. The Kalathi opened diplomatic channels for the first time in their history, and the Ashkari main swarm, for the first time ever recorded, changed course to avoid Coalition territory. Sarah stood in her office, looking out at Earth hanging in space, and allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't peace. The galaxy was still dangerous, and there would be more battles, more sacrifices. But for the first time since that day when the Krell delivered their ultimatum, humanity and its allies had breathing room. There was a knock on her door. "Come in." Organ entered, his 4 eyes bright. "Admiral, I wanted to inform you personally. The Krell Survivor Council has made a decision. We're establishing a permanent settlement on Earth's moon, with their permission." Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. Permission enthusiastically granted. "Welcome home, Torgan." "Thank you, Admiral, and thank you for giving my people a reason to hope again. We came to your world as invaders. You made us family." After Torgan left, Sarah returned to the window. 24 hours. That's how long the Krill had given Earth to surrender. Humanity had spent 18 of those hours laughing, and in the remaining 6, they'd changed the galaxy forever. The universe was vast and full of dangers. But Earth had proven something that day, something that would echo across the stars for generations to come. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. Their ability to find hope in the darkest moments. Their talent for turning enemies into allies and building something greater than themselves. They'd been given an ultimatum: surrender or die. Earth's response had been simple: we choose neither. And when the galaxy looked at humanity now, it saw not prey, not primitives, but the species that laughed in the face of death and then rewrote the rules. Sarah raised her coffee cup in a silent toast to the stars, to the fallen, and to the impossible future they were all building together. "Here's to choosing neither," she murmured. Always. Outside her window, ships from a dozen species patrolled Earth orbit. Not conquerors, not subjects. Partners in something unprecedented, a galaxy where species stood together by choice, not force. It had all started with laughter, and it would continue with hope.